A thick fog rolled down the quintessential suburban street of First Avenue as it had for the majority of the day. It was humid in September, but summer was coming to an end, and cooler weather invigorated the residents in the quaint town of Farmville, Virginia. They didn't know that their college town would be rocked by an event so horrifying it would imprint itself upon the minds of anyone who came close to its once idyllic center. Hi. Oh, no, it's okay, Buff. Hi. Me and my dog Buffy welcome you back to our third episode of I Love You, Keith Morrison. Can you believe it? I can't either, Buffy. I cannot either. That means I finished 2 things already. And now I'm going to finish my 3rd thing, which is great for me, a gal who's been a dabbler for most of her life, unable to settle down on anything. So here we go again. As always, get comfortable, do your dishes, or whatever you gotta do, because I want to talk about something. I grew up fascinated with tales of murder and intrigue. My mother was a police sketch artist, and her mom, my grandma, loved to write and consume thrillers. So, between my matriarchal need to delve and my father's love for storytelling, I will use details gathered from the case to paint a picture of the lives impacted by such madness, sharing with you what I've learned along the way. My name is Erica, and you are listening to I Love You, Keith Morrison.
They give you nightmares?
We could call it a nightmare.
They want you to listen carefully and lean back and just imagine things. Telling stories is a little like singing a song. It's a performance. Maybe you're telling your own story, maybe you're telling somebody else's story. It doesn't really matter. It has to be told.
Dr. Deborah Sue Kelly was the matriarch at the house located at 505 First Avenue. She was accomplished. She had worked tirelessly to receive her PhD and became an associate professor at Longwood University, a criminology and sociology professor. She also started like a whole chapter at her university called Lambda Alpha Epsilon, which is apparently, I didn't know. They have fraternities for budding criminologists, and she started the one at Longwood. More you know. Anyway, it was only 10 days before her 53rd birthday on September 18th, 2009. When the students would speak about their late professor, they said that, she kind of kept her private life private, but Dr. Kelly would show an immense interest in the students' personal lives and their own well-being. It seemed that she was a very loved professor at the university. Besides bringing Emma to class with her on some days, they really didn't know much about her personal life. So I'll tell you a little bit about it. She had a husband. His name was Mark Niederbrock. He was 50 years old, and he was a very well-loved and very devout pastor. Before joining the Union Seminary in Richmond, Virginia, he had received another master's degree in photography before he landed a gig at Walker's Presbyterian Church. And together the couple had raised a daughter named Emma Niederbrock, and she was 16 at the time of this story. The couple was not only successful, they were pillars in their community. They devoted their lives to the betterment of those around them. Right? They appeared to be really wonderful parents, even though they had filed for a legal separation a year prior. Despite the indefinite pause on the marriage, they were both very supportive and active in Emma's life. I've been 16 before. Have you been 16 before? A 16-year-old girl before? Because I definitely have. You've got the moods. You've developed an inner monologue. Or at least you've given a name to that inner monologue. And you've discovered new fears that completely surpass the active imagination you grew up with. It blows Freddy Krueger out of the water, right? You're desperate for validation, and you're often hit with rejection and perceived loss. Hormones be poppin', undiagnosed mental illness be poppin', and whether you're focused on boys or girls or music and stuff, the fact remains, you're just dipping your toes into life. And this is the age when you just kind of start to fixate, right? I mean, in my own personal opinion, that was what was really happening with Emma here. Emma's parents had made the decision to homeschool her when she had reached the 7th or 8th grade, and this really kind of made sense because apparently Dr. Kelly, ever since she was little, she would like line her dolls up in a row and teach them lessons. So it made sense that she would later follow that career path and also homeschool her daughter. Now, Emma was said to be very bright and active in soccer, and into her teen years, she started to develop new interests and explore with self-expression. She dyed her hair bubblegum pink, and she got a side bang. Go off, girl. However, as time passed, she developed new hobbies, like writing vulgarities on her wall and listening to raunchy bands pledge their life to Satan. All of this encompassed the musical genre of horrorcore. And I'm so mad that I have to say horrorcore so many times during this script because it hurts to say horrorcore. Blech. Anyway, blood, guts, murder, rape, whatever. I know that we're all very aware of the satanic panic narrative, but it's 2025. We know video games are violent. So let's look beyond that. Let's peel back that layer of judgment just a little bit further. This is your safe place to do so, okay? Cool. Emma focused a good amount of her time on her Myspace presence. Yay! Didn't we all? She began fostering these online relationships. She met a lot of people through Myspace, and her online personality, she would become known as Ragdoll. You want to hear my MySpace name? Okay. If you say my name, Erica Shea, and then take the E off, it's Ricochet, like, so I was Ricochet TM. We're getting vulnerable on this podcast, okay? So Emma was becoming like a scene queen, but with like more hip hop and metal influence. All of these interests led her to designing her own clothes, specifically skirts. And when she was able to, she wanted to pursue a career in cosmetology. It's a very natural progression for so many people. But this is what I'm talking about. Even though she was listening to some dumb music, you know, talking about Satan all the time, she was starting to envision a future for herself. Right? Dr. Kelly had grown very nervous about her daughter's new interests, and she confessed to a colleague at work that it really concerned her. But between her and Mark, they both decided, like, we can guide her, but she's gonna have to learn this lesson in the end. And they mainly really hoped that it was just a phase. So according to Wikipedia, horrorcore is a subgenre of hip-hop music based on horror theme or often darkly transgressive lyrical content and imagery. In the online community of 2009, this is where Ragdoll, or Emma, would meet someone else named Melanie Wells. She was a fellow horrorcore enthusiast, and she was 18 years old. So she was 2 years older than Emma. And it's actually like really cute how they met. So on MySpace, they both followed this artist named Rezakel. And I know what you might be thinking. It's giving Zuzu, Zaza, Pazuzu vibes. But plot twist, the murderer was not Rezakel. Okay, and how dare you even think that? Anyway, so they both followed Rezakel on MySpace, and she was like, both of you are really cool, and guess what? You live so close to each other, you guys should hang out. I feel like you'd hit it off. And they did hit it off, and they did hang out. So they would become friends, Melanie and Emma. A little bit about Melanie's MySpace presence. She listed interests such as cigarettes, alcohol, lust, restorative arts, blood and gore, and open graves. So before I introduce the last person in this case, I once again want to say that regardless of any humor I use to cope, I'm not unbothered by these cases, even though I'm giggling and laughing at myself. Is the only way we can get by, right? All of the victims in this case were beautiful people who had so much purpose, and all of that was snuffed out by a kid's fragile ego. It was through this community that Richard Samuel McCroskey, a 20-year-old boy, found Emma. Emma, who was bright and beautiful and vivid, and they actually began sending videos back and forth. Richard had his own online personality named Psycho Sam, and that was derivative of his love for the Son of Sam and psychos. Anyway, the two were kind of growing closer, and Emma entertained the idea. Plus, this kid lived all the way in California, so there was safety in exploring the idea. Besides, he was into the same stuff she was into, so she continued to talk to him. Now I have to do a screen grab of one of the videos that he sends Emma.
Alright, so you wanted a video, and you made me videos, so, and he said please, so I'll make you this video, even though I'm not gonna like do anything, because my room's kind of dirty, and yeah, I don't want to show you my dirty room, but this video is for Emma, because you just told me to say your name, so I don't know. I'll make you another video once clean, I promise. Unless you just want to like see my wall, because that's not dirty, but behind me is dirty, so that's not good. Alright, this video is for you, Emma. The ragdoll, amazing ragdoll, and I really don't know what to do for you on video. So I guess I'll like show you my room a little bit, if that's what you want to see. First off, we got my door. And then we got my addiction for energy drinks. And then we got my small underground CD collection going on right here. And then we got my wall of awesomeness that I call it. Lots of posters and flyers and a Hatchet Man charm and random stuff. A hatchet. Oh no, the battery's dying.
Yeah. Richard made horrorcore the basis of his entire personality, as youngsters often do. And what's wild is that in the days following the crime, he took multiple videos of himself. In one of them, he says, "Fuck you to the big world. Fuck everybody in the world. I can't stand this place. My mind snapped. I'm sorry. I had to do it. Tell my parents I love them. Peace out." So there's that. And then there's this. These are Psycho Sam lyrics. Are you ready? Okay. "The evil voices inside my head, they just want me to murder continuously. They want me to take the lives on a mass murder spree. They love the smell of a body that's rotten and decayed. That's what I think about when I'm stalking my prey." Richard considered Emma to be his online girlfriend, but I can't say for sure that was exactly known to Emma. She did like him. She enjoyed talking to him as a friend for now, maybe more. Who knows? Remember, we're dipping our toes in. Women are allowed to change their mind. People are allowed to change their mind, okay? So, a year into being online friends, Emma, Melanie, and Richard start to make plans to meet up. There's a horrorcore festival in Michigan called Strictly for the Wicked that they all really want to go to, so they start planning. And Emma's parents actually allow this to all go down as long as they are integral to the planning process. They set up a bunch of boundaries. They would be driving the group to Michigan there and back. Even more accommodating, they offered Richard the chance to crash at their house on the days preceding and following the music festival. That was really nice of them. They didn't have to do that. They could have said, take a hike, kid. At this time, Richard's home life was in big transition. His father had asked his mother to move out of the family home in Castro Valley, California, which is a beautiful area across the bay from San Francisco. And if you are following along with me chronologically, you will notice that Robert Rowe, one of the creeps from the last video, he came from Castro Valley, California too. Each case that I have planned out has had some sort of weird synchronicity all throughout it, like little Easter eggs that I don't even notice until I'm rereading the script. I just think it's cool. The universe is cool, okay? Anyway, things were turbulent at Richard's home, so when Emma started giving him public displays of affection online, things were looking up for Richard, right? Yeah. Richard McCroskey was born on December 26, 1988. This makes him a Capricorn. This makes him a male Capricorn. Yeah! So his sister, who was only a year older than him, said in an interview that they weren't the typical Leave It to Beaver type family. She says that in high school, when they both went to the same high school, Richard was bullied for being overweight and having red hair. And Richard was said to be very passive about it, which made things worse for him in the end with the bullying. After a while, Richard and his sister both dropped out of high school. Richard coped with his love for horrorcore, and that's okay. That's not illegal. But then he would start posting YouTube videos of himself like defiling graves. And guess what? That's illegal and that's rude. Don't do that. The McCroskeys, they came from a musical family. Their dad played guitar, and Richard's sister actually ended up in music production too. And this is an exact example of there are two ways you could take your trauma: music production or what I'm about to tell you. A few days before the concert, on September 7th, Emma and her parents would pick up Richard at the airport. So once they had met up with their friend Melanie, Emma admitted that she was a little disappointed by Richard's lack of confidence and shy demeanor. But she decided to make the best of it. What else was she going to do? He was supposed to stay at her house. Actually, girl, you could be like, you can just go home. You don't owe him anything, actually. Some rando you met on Myspace. Yeah, send him the fuck home, actually. Anyway, she decided to make the best of the long-awaited event, and her parents drove the three to the concert, which was 10 hours back and forth. And if that doesn't show dedication on behalf of Emma's parents, I don't know what does, because I can't say if I was a parent I would do that. And they were legally separated, so would you do that? I don't know. Now, in my research, I came across several YouTube videos from the music festival that Emma and Mel were at. And honestly, the music wasn't half bad. It had a good beat, but I just wanted to jump in here and say that it was extremely touching and very sad to watch this footage. So I'm not going to include too much of it, but I do want to paint a picture of what the music festival was like, what the energy was like. I was looking for Emma and Melanie and I found them, and there's a brief clip I'm going to show you, the last one, of Richard opening a door. And a YouTube commenter posted on this video saying, I can recognize Richard opening the door. Look at his jacket and his hoodie. So I just want you to take a look at this in reverence. These are some of the last moments that the girls had, and they were very happy and they were so into it. And so I really just do think that we have to hold space for that. Anyway, let me know what you think. On September 12th, they made the trip to Michigan for the music festival. Emma started to distance herself from Richard, and apparently some drama went down. No one can really say for sure. One of the rumors is that Richard saw Emma receive a text from a guy at the show. Another rumor is that she just distanced herself and talked to another guy that was at the show. And Richard was humiliated. He was furious and he reacted. For a while at least. So much for his happy ending. So much for my happy ending. One time I auditioned to sing that at a talent show and I biffed it at the tryouts, and on the judges' feedback, they still let me in, but they said, hey, maybe choose a happier song. And that's followed me my whole life. After his outburst at the show, his entire demeanor was said to have shifted. He seemed okay all of a sudden, and so they made the trip back to Farmville. They get home from the long trip on September 14th, and both of the girls log into their Myspace. Melanie hits up her parents and confirms that she's going to be picked up in 2 days. So this is on September 14th, the last known contact with the girls, okay? Melanie would not be coming home. Sometime between the 14th and the 16th of September, Melanie would be murdered. Melanie's parents were worried because they had just stopped hearing from her. They had also stopped hearing from Emma's parents, who were super involved in the planning of the festival. So big red flags, right? No one is answering the house phone or any of the cell phones, and even Rezakel hadn't seen them since the concert, and she told them this. So Melanie's father drives over to 505 First Avenue, and that is where he found Richard, who claimed to be Emma's boyfriend. And he was just being super inconsistent with their whereabouts. Like, first he said they went to the movies out of town, but the car died, and then also their phone died. But Emma called him from the movie theater phone. But yeah, they still weren't back yet. Melanie's parents, they were not buying it. So Melanie's mom contacted Farmville police asking for a welfare check. It had been 2 days since they had seen or heard from their daughter. After the welfare check, police called back Melanie's mom and said that they had also run into the kid too, the strange kid too, who gave them somewhat logical excuses, and they left without searching the interior of the home and advised Melanie's mother to call them back when she heard from her daughter or anyone. It's really interesting though, and I can't explain this, but when the police conducted their welfare check and Richard fed them that story about the movies and the phones breaking and all that stuff, the police said, that is weird. Hey, if you're concerned about them, maybe you should make a call yourself. Call 911 yourself, Richard. And he did. He called 911 and asked if units could be sent over to check the basement because he could hear sounds down there. Maybe it was the dog. The phone call was said to be remarkably run-of-the-mill, and the cops actually did come and they checked the basement for the ghost dog. And they couldn't confirm anyone else's welfare except for Richard's. And this is what I have a question about. Wouldn't the cops on a welfare check insist on talking to the homeowners of the house, not just like the homeowner's daughter's apparent boyfriend? Now listen to me. It wasn't until neighbors called police to report an awful odor emanating from the house at 505 First Avenue that police even went to go check on it. And the house was set back from the road, so the neighbors were able to smell from like where the mailbox was. What they would find in this home would be referred to as a slaughterhouse. And this house was so beautiful. It had 3 levels with a split floor plan, which comes into play, and a cute courtyard entryway that separated 2 sides of the house. AKA, it was picturesque, it was idyllic, it was beautiful, and then it was a fucking slaughterhouse. Upon discovery, 3 badly disfigured bodies would be found on the main level of the house. Those bodies would belong to Dr. Deborah Sue Kelly, Reverend Mark Niederbrock, and Melanie Wells. The sheer brutality of the attacks left the investigators stunned. And it turns out Richard had been living in the house with the corpses for days following the crime. He was apparently smoking weed and drinking beer and moving the bodies around. According to what they found at the scene, investigators believe he had killed them, starting with the 3 bodies upstairs. This is where they believe he bludgeoned Emma in her sleep. And no defensive wounds found on any of the 3 women, indicating that they were asleep at the time of the attack and hopefully did not suffer. As for Reverend Mark, and he was living outside of the house at this time, so he hadn't heard from his wife and his daughter. So he went over to check on them. He appeared to be attacked from behind as he entered the house 3 days after the initial murder of the women. Now, Emma's father was so badly beaten that the hardwood floor underneath him was completely pulverized, like it didn't really exist anymore. And that's fucking horrendous, right? That's just disgusting. I believe that Richard used a ball-peen hammer to bludgeon the women, and to kill Reverend Mark, he grabbed a hatchet from Dr. Kelly's log pile outside. So I don't know if he like saw Reverend Mark coming or if he eyeballed this hatchet earlier because he likes ICP, so he wanted to use that hatchet. I'm not coming for any insane clown posses out there. Let's make sure we are aware of that. It was a nightmarish scene, and I'm not going to explain too many more explicit details of the case because of the crime scene, because Richard's behavior afterwards was so weird. So weird. It completely compounded any sanity I had before I watched this video, which I did source from Explore With Us. My next case, I do use a documentary, so I'm not only just using Explore With Us, although they are a great resource. Apparently, Richard called home in the final hours he spent at 505 First Avenue. His sister said that he sounded off, and he said that he loved her, which was weird because they didn't really say that within the family. He took a video saying that he had to pay the consequences for his actions because he just snapped dude and he needed to face the consequences, insinuating that he was going to turn himself in.
Or if anybody finds this, I really don't know what I'm trying to say, and I'm breathtaking at what I've done, and I apologize. I know I'm going to pay for my consequences. I wish that I could have not done this, but I just lost my mind. I snapped, and I did what I did, and I gotta pay for it now, my consequences. I'm all shaky and stuff, but to anybody that finds this, tell my parents that I love them, and I'm very sorry for doing this, and there's nothing really else to say. To everybody that is probably gonna hate me for this, I'm sorry, and I had to do it. My mind just snapped. I couldn't control it anymore. That's it. Fuck you to the big world. Fuck everybody in the world. I can't stand this place.
But then he changes his mind, and he takes another video where he pans the camera to this staircase, and it appears to have some sort of belt or necktie on it, and he's just like insinuating that he was gonna himself. But he didn't. On September 18th at 4 a.m., this would only be a few hours before the cops would arrive to the house, Richard stole Reverend Mark's car, and then he crashed it, and the fucking cops came. And he got a ticket for driving without a license. And then the cop called a tow truck driver, or they called a tow truck driver. Tow truck. So the cop had even waited with him until the tow truck driver had arrived. And this driver, he stated that this kid stunk like the devil. He had to drive with his window down outside, just fucking dry heaving because this kid smelled so bad. It's weird though, right? Why would the cop be waiting with him and not notice that smell? If they would even notice like the smell of alcohol, wouldn't they recognize the smell of death? I just feel like this is a weird part in the case. So the tow truck driver drops him off at the gas station where Richard is seen buying an energy drink on the CCTV footage. Then Stinky called himself a cab to go to the airport. Then guess what happened? Then what? What else could happen? There's no way another cop could be involved in this without noticing. Yes, there was, because this cab Richard was in got pulled over for speeding on the way to the airport. What did Richard do? Well, he just calmly stepped outside of the cab while the cab driver was getting a ticket, and he smoked a cigarette on the side of the road. Then he got back in the cab and was dropped off at Richmond Airport. Not Richard's Airport. Once he arrived at Richmond Airport, he slept for a bit because he had 2 days to kill. So he tucked his arms into the sleeves of his jacket and pulled his hood up over his head, and he dozed. He slept for a little longer. Then it said that he might have gotten nervous because he tried to move his flight sooner than the 2 days later, which I don't blame him, but he couldn't afford to change his flight. So he slept. He slept in clothes caked with blood and gore because he didn't shower or change at the house. He lived with corpses. He murdered people, kept those clothes on, and then lived with the corpses. And then suddenly he's at the airport. Ugh. But guess what? Guess what? Finally, he was arrested on September 19th at 11:30 a.m. by airport security. Woo, 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 woo. 2 things. How did they know to apprehend Richard so quickly? Well, at the house, he left a note with the terminal number, the airport address. He left basically a note on where to find him. And then Rezekel's boyfriend called the cops too in that short period of time, saying that Richard had bragged about killing a few people. So he was in there smoking weed, bragging to someone online about murdering someone. Not cute. That's not cute. So it was pretty clear who the culprit was and literally where to find him. Once apprehended, he spent a year in jail before accepting a plea deal of 4 life sentences. One of the murder victims was a criminology professor, and she was setting up a future for future criminologists. That fucking sucks. And you know what sucks too is that they drove 20 hours with this strange boy in a car just to make their daughter happy. It kind of feels like they got punished for being attentive parents, and that bothers me. Their entire legacy is tinged red, And guess what, Richard? You're still unhappy. Your family has a life sentence now, and so does Melanie's. And you're still unhappy. Emma and Mel, they were just girls. They're just a girl. And the biggest reason I chose this case is that I have extreme survivor's guilt about this one. And for all my girls out there who put themselves in stupid situations, actually anyone who put themselves in a dumb situation and survived, if you don't feel guilty when you come across these cases, you might be doing something wrong. I'm just saying. When I was 16, I used to hang out with a group of boys, 2 of which I met on Myspace. This is really kind of like normal then. It wasn't like meeting someone on Facebook. Like Myspace, there was just more like random stranger connections. Anyway, these boys were probably 2-3 years older than me, and my mom is a saint. She kind of reminds me of Dr. Kelly in the fact that she let her daughter have autonomy with boundaries, which is very important. My mom didn't just let me like disappear for days or anything like that. I'm just saying that she really trusted the world with me. And as I've grown up, I've realized that this was kind of the first vulnerable situation I'm able to recognize that I put myself in. I am here to be honest, so I will admit, as a 16-year-old girl, I enjoyed the attention that I received from these boys. Stone the witch, I know, she's the fucking worst. I didn't even know if I liked boys all the way, actually, but like that's my prerogative to find out, okay? And regardless of all that, the attention I received from these friendships gave me a reason, because I felt extremely isolated when I was younger. I went to a public school and I decided to be straight edge, which was very isolating except for those who are also straight edge. Okay, so we'd go to hardcore shows at venues that have long since been shut down. They'd pick me up in the middle of the night while my mom was sleeping, and I text her to let her know where I had run off to and who I was with. I bring all of this up to publicly acknowledge the fact that I'm very lucky the guys I made friends with weren't complete psychopaths. Even now, I can think of multiple ways that these nights could have ended very bad for me, and my mom might not be able to find where I'm at. And that's frightening. But she did teach me to always be looking over my shoulder. So I'm kind of neurotic, and I'm sure that helped her trust me with the world. Even though these nights did not turn bad for me, it's not to say it didn't turn toxic, and there's a million things I could have done better in these situations. I could have said no. I was not comfortable telling people no at this time. I still struggle with it. I'm 31 now, but I'm getting there. You want me to see? Watch. No. Had I told these boys, hey, I'm not interested in you, or blah, 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 they wouldn't have flipped out any less. I still would have been a slut or a whore that led them on for any amount of time I was friends with them. And then when they found out that I was dating girls, when I was dating girls, one of them gay bashed me, which exactly. Perceived rejection in the wrong hands is extremely dangerous, and that's all I'm saying. My advice is don't fucking flip out on people when they decide they don't vibe with you. Congratulations, you're free from that bond of attraction. You don't have to waste your time with them anymore. Okay? You're gonna grow up and realize how silly and toxic you were being, as I am doing now, right? And that's normal. But what's not normal is making a decision that affects so many people's lives and you cannot take it back. And you have just ruined any chance you had at future happiness. All in all, I think this case proves that if there's one thing that bonds us as a species, it is how extremely susceptible we are to another person's trauma. Right? Like, do we think that if Richard hadn't been bullied, do you think that he would have been able to handle the rejection better? Who's to say? And that's what's truly frightening. In my research, I found this YouTube channel called After Prison Show, and the host interviewed Richard's roommate, okay? And this guy was named Pee-wee, and he had to choose between bunking with a pedophile and bunking with a 20-year-old murderer. He chose the murderer, but he was creeped out the whole time. Pee-wee had this sleepy time routine where he would cover his eyes with like a towel so he wouldn't be bothered by the lights at bunk check. But when he was rooming with Psycho Sam, he didn't do that because he felt like he always had to sleep with one eye open. And that's why none of the inmates respected him. That's probably why none of the inmates continue to respect him, is because he killed people in their sleep and they had values. It's important to have values and identify what they are, because you can feel when you're not sticking to them, you know? Thanks for being here for my 3rd episode. I hope your day is exactly what you need. Maybe tonight you could watch a silly movie, lighten things up a little bit, make some cookies or something. If we all sort of collectively worked on our own trauma and practiced goodness in our own individual communities, why wouldn't we see a positive change on a larger level? Why wouldn't we? Can you tell me? Can you tell me why we wouldn't? Anyway, subscribe if you want to see each other more. Like if you liked. Share if you want to share it. Until next time, follow me on Instagram at I Love You Keith Morrison. That's ILY Keith Morrison. Goodbye.